Ahoy! Welcome to the Sea Captain Leadership Podcast with Phil Bender, where we help listeners navigate the uncharted waters of personal and professional growth. The Sea Captain Leadership Podcast is about sharing energizing stories of leadership development and the culture surrounding top-performing individuals and their businesses. We want to help you to take risks and build your vision by showing you how to break free of the boundaries that are holding you back. So today we are delighted to welcome Ambeka Khadse to the Sea Captain Leadership Podcast. Ambeka is the founder of Flourish Compass, which offers wellness-centered leadership programs that integrate self-management with core leadership skills to drive organizational success. Her experience differentiates her from her competition by providing a unified focus on leadership elevation as well as self-management to ensure that individuals are equipped to manage all aspects of their daily lives. Ambeka has over 15 years of talent development experience with Fortune 50 companies and nearly 2 decades in wellness as a yoga practitioner and teacher. Welcome, Ambeka. Good to have you.
Thank you so much, Phil. I'm so excited to be here and I'm thrilled to be on the Sea Captain Leadership Podcast. I know we share some commonalities in this passion around integrating health and wellness into our leadership offerings and programs. So I'm so excited to speak with you today.
We do. And just so we're clear, no hot yoga for me. I can't, that part I don't do, but I have done yoga and whatnot, but what a vast experience. And for those of you who are viewing us, I can't believe you've done 20 years of anything.
I know. Maybe it's the yoga that helps.
I guess, but it's really great to have you. And so tell us a little bit about Flourish Compass and why you chose to be an entrepreneur in the space.
Yeah, so the Flourish Compass was something I've been thinking about for a while. And over the past year, it became more of a constant thought in my mind. And, after, as you mentioned, 15 years of working in leadership training, I realized, we do teach leaders the core skills of how to be stronger leaders in a sense. And even individuals and employees, right? These skills of communication and feedback and coaching and so forth. And then a lot of organizations offer wellness perks or employee assistance programs, but we don't necessarily walk individuals through how do you merge those two and take those wellness perks and wellness learnings and integrate it into your day-to-day leadership. And that's how I came about the Flourish Compass of how do I help set individuals up by taking these two components and simultaneously developing leadership skills with wellness so people can manage themselves.
No, so Flourish Compass. Yeah. So give me, I'm always intrigued by how you got to naming this, and I probably could guess, but tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so honestly, Phil, that wasn't the first name I had pop into my mind. It was more of a process. And, the first thought I had was, better human or elevating a human and something along those lines. And I will say a lot of what drove me to the Flourish Compass was one, understanding what's already existing within our vast internet space, but the idea of flourishing and really growing and that continued growth, the word really resonated with me. And then the compass came about because it's that idea of how do we guide people to this continued growth. So after playing around with a number of words and different variations, I landed on this because it spoke to me.
I love it. And as I'm thinking about, this health and wellness, I think back to my early career in my 20s, which basically revolved around working and happy hours.
Yeah.
And so as you're sharing all of this, I have evolved as a human, to use your term, but my gosh, the thought of health and wellness integrated in the workspace, in the leadership space makes total sense. And yet, so often is misunderstood in some corporate cultures in some workspace, right? And it's not just about playing ping pong, like some cultures got to, with the millennial space and the Gen Z space. This is really about mind, body, soul stuff.
Exactly, exactly. And to your point, I think that's in a sense maybe a bit of the norm for a lot of people, right? In our early career, when we're younger, we tend to meet up with people, go out, whether it's happy hour, whether it's dinner, whatever it may be, and work, work, work. And then you get to a point where you're like, okay, well, this is catching up to me, and how do I bring more of that wellness into my life and into my work?
I love it. I love it. So, Ambeka, your website mentioned 33% of employees and executives struggle with fatigue and poor mental health. Nearly half of the employees think their company's executives do not care about their well-being. Let's chat on this for a couple minutes. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I was actually, surprised by the extent of individuals, right? 1/3 of the employees we're saying are constantly struggling with their wellness, and therefore they're not bringing their optimal potential, right, to the table. And half the employees across organizations we're saying are not even thinking that their organization prioritizes their wellness, right? So that could be very demotivating. And just for some context, this data came from a study by Deloitte and Workplace Intelligence, and they spoke to employees across the US, UK, Canada, and Australia. So it's a pretty vast study with different insights, And what it really brought to light is that employee wellness really needs to be an important focus for businesses, not just from a human perspective, but from a business perspective as well, right? Healthy employees elevate the bottom line of your business. They are able to have increased engagement, commitment, productivity. So it definitely was surprising to me, the extent of the numbers and how high they are, and how much of a focus this should really be for companies.
Yeah. So in your 15 years in the corporate space, working in this space, what were a couple of maybe quick examples of where it worked and maybe a couple where it didn't?
Yeah. So I think what you see a lot in the corporate environment, and at least I could speak from my experience, is, a lot of individuals, as we were saying, are working from whether it be 6, 7 in the morning, early or later, all the way through the evening into the night, right? And it's this idea that the more I work, the more I'll progress, or the more I work, the more I'll make, whatever their driver is, right? But then we see individuals get to a point where either they leave corporate and maybe do a different career path, switch lanes, slow down a bit, or they get to this fatigue and exhaustion and leave for medical reasons, right? And this is not everyone, but a lot of people go down this path. So how do we help people before they get there, before they get to that level?
So let's talk about self-care. How do you define self-care? How do you think why is self-care so critical? I mean, you're touching on it, but let's get down to what does that really mean for somebody, one of our listeners who's out there saying, okay, I'm paying attention.
Absolutely. So, my definition, let's say, or my focus of self-care is the ability to take the steps or the actions that you need to recenter yourself or reset yourself. And this could be from mental, physical, and emotional perspective. So one, knowing where you are and how you're doing. So that's self-awareness. And then knowing what you can do to better support yourself. So it's having those tools and that knowledge to bring yourself back to a baseline if you've been in a very stressful day, or a stressful meeting, or a situation that's really left you away from that baseline. So how do you get yourself back together in a sense? And if we're thinking one day before moving to that next activity, so you're not carrying, not that you'll get rid of everything, but you're not carrying that same mental mindset into that next activity or meeting.
So what I'm hearing is you have a bad day, bad week, bad season, let's say, and how do you recharge? Historically, that might be exercise, or it might be sleeping even. But you're saying that there is more significant things that can be done here in that path. But it is all about your ability to I'm thinking, get away from it put it in a certain place. We used to talk about, in the old days, we used to talk about you take your jacket off when you come home, so you take work off.
Yeah.
Right. What would be an example maybe of something like that? What do you think?
Yeah. And so I'll pause. It could also, I know we tend to think a lot of these like bad days or stressful days, but it could be that you're also having a good week, but there's just so much packed into that week
Oh,
that you
yeah.
haven't taken a moment to your point. I know you mentioned sleep or exercise. You haven't taken a moment to make sure that you're able to continue functioning at that pace or at that level, right? And I think, Phil, I may have missed that last question. I think you were asking, what does that look like other than exercise or sleep?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of it is really this idea of how do you focus on mindfulness? How do you focus on getting in touch with yourself? And I know that sounds a little fluffy sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times we don't notice that we're fatigued, that we're running on low battery, that we're running on low energy, that we haven't taken a moment to process maybe some things that have happened until we get to that point of exhaustion. And I know right now we hear so much about burnout, right? We don't necessarily pay attention to ourselves until we get to that extreme. And the idea is, how do we incorporate some of these tools, some of these tactics before we get to that extreme so that we can mitigate ourselves and say, let me put myself back on course because I don't want to follow that ramp to burnout.
Yeah. So I'm going to pause here to share a couple things, and then maybe what are some of those tools. And I think I might end up, because I'm volunteering here, if I'm vulnerable, transparent, I went through a stretch like this when I transitioned out of my firm and into my coaching brand. Okay. Yeah. And everything from imposter syndrome to quite frankly, everything went so well that I had trouble shutting work off. And so it got pretty bad for a while. And then you combine COVID and the online element of it. I expected to do some online work, and then I didn't do it. Or I mean, I should say I just was only doing it. And so going through that, I certainly got into therapy, and I also started meditation. And I think that's been a profound impact for me. Would that be one of the examples of a tool you might use?
Absolutely, Phil. And honestly, I would say my situation is something similar to maybe what you experienced, and in the sense that I just started the Flourish Compass in January. And I think for anyone else who's an entrepreneur, they'll hopefully agree that there is that wave that you're riding up and down. It's like a roller coaster, right? Where again, that idea of, am I doing the right thing? Am I capable of doing this? Or you have good days where you feel as though you're doing a fantastic job on the right path, right? So I love that you call that meditation, because that's something I do as well, right? And I think people hear the word meditation and they envision somebody sitting in the middle of a forest or what have you, cross-legged on the floor, closing their eyes, right? And that could be meditation, but it could also be just a quick reset. You could be sitting at your desk, and whether you close your eyes or not, but going through some thought processes, right? In yoga, we say a lot, live in the present, right? You can't change the past. We're not saying don't think about the future, don't give it any thought. Yes, you want to plan for what may come in your life, but you don't know truly what will happen. So how can you live in the moment and do the best with what you have, what you know right now, right? So the idea of meditation, whether it's a quick meditation, 5-10 minutes, whether you have an hour free and you want to go into some deep thoughts, how do you take that time to really clear out and understand what's going through your mind?
Yeah, so well said. And I appreciate you sharing the vulnerability in that, because, real mission, and we talk about this at Sea Captain all the time, real mission clarity comes from adversity. And so going through something difficult actually helps you understand why you're really doing what you're doing. And yet there can be some damage from that adversity, or just not facing it. And so I think you articulated that well. So let's talk a little bit about you are a yoga instructor, which is cool. You teach outside in the spring to the
too.
fall in New York. First of all, you're one of those cool people from New York, and but outside yoga. Tell me, go into some of the importance of mindfulness, in your job, but also how you teach it.
Yeah. So, when we think of mindfulness, it really is this, again, like I said, awareness of yourself, awareness of what's going on around you. Not that we want to forget about the future, but how can we do the best with what we have right now, right? And it's important to our personal lives, but also our professional lives, right? So how do we, if we're thinking, again, having, from a mental perspective, whether it's you're having a rough day, you're having a tough time, you have these negative thoughts popping into your mind. How do you pause to understand them and what impact they have on you, but also how valuable are they to helping you move ahead, right? From an emotional perspective, right? These ideas and these thoughts, negative and positive, have different reactions emotionally, right? So when we're thinking of our day to day, again, whether it's a personal discussion, a professional discussion, something happens, how do we, in a sense, cause ourselves or force ourselves to pause for a moment before thinking of our actions, right? And how we want to proceed. And then they have been shown to have these physical aspects as well, right? So how do we calm ourselves down? Whether it's the anxiety, whether it's, they've been shown in different studies to have impacts on blood pressure and so forth. But how do we use these tools in our personal and professional lives to make us more impactful and effective in what we want to accomplish?
Yeah. So what you're saying is I should probably hire you to help me on the golf course.
I can try. I haven't actually tested it out, and with golf particularly, but I'm open for the challenge.
You would not want that. No, you would not want that opportunity. That could be the worst experience of your professional life. I still cannot seem to tame the beast when it comes to golf, but I will say one of the things you said that really resonated with me is the best I can be right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, whether it's the breathing, which is a meditative thing, it's also a mindfulness thing, or it's just, saying, okay, things are not working right now. What's the best I can be right now?
Exactly.
And be present. And that's the key, I think. Yeah.
It is. And I think a lot of times, we struggle with that, right? Because we always think, oh, well, I should be better. And I know a lot now we live in a world of social media, right? So you see all sorts of things on social media, which of course we all know people are mostly only presenting the positives, right? And the good side of things.
Right.
But you don't see the X amount of times they failed or they messed up, right? So I think we do put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and it's a bit of that acceptance of, well, here's the best I could be at this moment. Doesn't mean it's the best I'm ever going to be, but right now, this is what I'm doing until I learn more and can do better.
I love it. Good stuff. And so, I'd love to hear more about your Prime to Prosper program, a new workforce readiness virtual program you've pioneered. And now, just for the listener, the program walks participants through key skills to embrace and implement starting from day one of their employment. Tell me about how this came about and why you're so passionate about it.
Yeah, so this program was something, as I was thinking of before I even launched this business, of actually going into entrepreneurship, is one of the things that was a constant thought to me. And it came about from, as you mentioned, I've been doing leadership training for 15 years and thinking through, if I had known some of these skills or knowledge or behaviors to embrace as I started my career, or even before I even started my first job, how helpful it would have been, right? Things like different communication. How do you interact with different people effectively? How do you come and start that job more strategically? How can you essentially be more impactful in your role from day one? So the Prime to Prosper program was something I put together for new graduates, those graduating college, or maybe they didn't go to college and they're looking to jump right into the workforce. So it's, in a sense, a baseline overview of a lot of these key skills that we deep dive with a lot of our leadership trainings. But how do we set individuals up from the beginning with just some core basic skills? So we may not go as deep as a full 2-hour communication workshop or so forth, but giving someone the core basic skills to get themselves started. So how do we give people that heads up of here's how you're expected to behave, or here's some best practices, let's say, right? Because we're not necessarily looking to change our behavior. It's understand ourselves and understand how others interact with us to become more elevated in what we're doing.
That's really cool. And we didn't talk about this beforehand, but I guest lecture at the University of Missouri's Business School, and just have a new book coming out. Shameless plug right now, but there's a point of making it. Is called The Voyage, and it addresses exactly what you're talking about, which is for graduates, undergrads and graduates, to learn key leadership elements before they start. Before they go to employment. Yeah. So I'll send you a copy. It's just about done. So, so cool. So what a great visit. Tell me about your vision for, Flourish Compass.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I'm just getting started here. So I am looking, for a couple of different streams that I work with. One is, as we just spoke about, those more junior and new to the workforce, right? And that could also include, in a sense, individuals that may have stepped away from the workforce, and maybe they're coming back after years away and they're looking to just freshen themselves up on these skills. So one avenue is how I really support that area and those individuals. The second avenue I envision is growing more with the corporate side of really bringing more of this awareness to health and wellness, the integration of that into leadership skills versus keeping it, as I see it right now, more of separate silos in how we currently function. And then the third piece, as you mentioned earlier, I've been teaching yoga, and I've been practicing yoga for 2 decades, and then that's something I'm going to continue doing. But also, how do I continue to offer yoga to my community? So I currently offer community class once a week, Monday evenings, to anyone who's interested in joining, all different levels, beginners to experts. And how do I continue bringing that awareness and giving people that opportunity to leverage? For me, it's yoga. I know different people have different exercises to really help bring a little more balance to their lives.
I love it. So next time in New York, you have my word, next time in New York, I'm going to come to your yoga class. Okay, yes, my wife and I will come. We're going to come. I'll be the one with the dad bod.
Okay. Everyone is welcome. We have so many different people. We are actually out in the park. We start in 2 weeks.
I can't wait. I cannot wait.
Gorgeous weather.
And you think I'm kidding? No, we're coming. So
no, I'm going to look out for you.
So thanks again for being on. What a pleasure, and great perspective, unique perspective here. Tell us again, if you would, the name of your website if people want to reach out to you.
Absolutely. So I'm at theflourishcompass.com. Very straightforward. If you want to reach out to me, you could definitely reach out. There's a contact page there. You can email me at ambeka@flourishcompass.com. And yeah, definitely check out the website, the programs. We have some downloadable resources as well. And Phil, thank you so much for having me on today. It was such a pleasure to speak with you and just have this interaction and hear more. And I'm so excited to read your book.
Yeah, I'll shoot it out to you. Ambeka Khadse, thank you so much for being here. It was a real pleasure. And I hope all our listeners really appreciate the effort and care that she puts into building the whole person. Thanks for joining us for this edition of the Sea Captain Leadership Podcast. If you found the conversation valuable, please like, share, and post a review on your favorite podcast app. To learn more about Sea Captain and its high-performance coaching programs, visit us at seacaptaincoaching.com. The link is in the show notes. You can also follow us at Sea Captain Coaching on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening. Wishing you fair winds and a following sea on your journey.